Well, welcome everyone to Evolve Academy's Cybersecurity Career Webinar Series. I'm your host, Ginger. And when I am not hosting, I handle admissions for the Academy. Joining us today, we have Tyler Mott, one of our Academy alumni, who's here to share his story into his cybersecurity career. Thanks for joining us, Tyler.
Yeah, no problem.
If you wouldn't mind, so obviously I'll go through a series of questions, just kind of about your cybersecurity journey, those burning questions that all aspiring cybersecurity professionals want to know. But before we do that, would you mind just introducing yourself and telling us what you did before getting into cyber?
Yeah, so I'm Tyler. I grew up in the Hudson Valley in New York, roughly like an hour north of the city. So I'll start with college. So I got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in political science. During that time, I interned at an organization that worked with the UN on Iranian human rights stuff.
Okay.
So I got to go to the UN for it. I went to Cambodia for a month-long like research trip. And really my goal there was at the time was FBI intelligence. That was kind of what I was trying to juice my resume up in preparedness for. So summer after I graduated with my master's, I passed the exams, got invited for the interview in Boston, and didn't get the job. So yeah, so heartbreaker. So that was rough. That was that was the dream. That was something that I really wanted. I think that the other candidates that interviewed with me were far more experienced. They had careers and other jobs and were older than me. I guess that's just what I say to make myself feel better.
Sure,
But
whatever you gotta say, right?
so
whatever helps.
yeah, so after that, I started looking at private sector intelligence jobs like physical security. And throughout this time, I was working, all throughout college, I was working retail. I worked at a Nike store, like selling sneakers. That's kind of how I, paid the bills, gas money, all that. And through that time, my gym eventually noticed that during when times where I'd be in school, that I was coming during the day, and they are actually the ones that approached me about hey, we need some help. Would you like to work here? And we worked out this thing where I could work full time there, and they would let me off for any interviews. Like if I had an interview, no questions asked, I could have the day off to go. So it was like an ideal situation, and did that right up until was doing that while I was applying for jobs, going on interviews, and that's what I did right up until COVID. So
okay. And what was your title again?
So Aquatics assistant is the job that's on my resume. What that really was is essentially lifeguarding, helping out with the swim team, putting out the lanes, helping with equipment stuff. You gotta juice up the job title a little bit.
Right,
So
right. But you got to do what you got to do to work towards that ultimate career goal, right?
Yeah.
So which gets us to your career now. Why did you want to start a career in cybersecurity?
Yeah, so from graduating my master's, that was May 2018, and COVID hit in March 2020. So by that time, I was already pretty beat up by the putting out hundreds of applications, going on interviews, not really getting too much traction. Obviously losing out on the dream job that I wanted. So I was already kind of beat down, and then COVID kind of further, put me in a situation where there's a lot of uncertainty. So that is where I was like, look, I'm never going to have my life paused like this, where I could go add a new skill or I
Mm-hmm.
could go learn something new or change directions. Like I'm probably never going to have this opportunity again. So I really thought about it, and I'm really into like health and wellness and fitness. So I thought about physical therapy, like everything was kind of on the table.
Sure.
Um, and then, I knew cybersecurity was kind of big. I figured that this was something that wouldn't necessarily waste my education in
Sure.
international relations and political science. Like there's kind of, a realm where that's relevant. So
Sure.
ultimately that's what, it was the lower barrier to entry than,
Mm-hmm.
medical, that would have been a
Sure.
whole nother series of schooling. And
Right. A complete pivot, or if
right.
you will.
hmm
So, cool. And so what is your job title now?
So now I am a cyber incident response team engineer. Um, Currently I'm at CVS.
Okay.
Previously, when for my first role, similar role, cyber incident response center analyst at ADP. That was the first job, and the CVS move was recent.
Okay, awesome. Congrats
So
on the
thank you, thank you,
the new position.
appreciate
Can
it.
you tell us, talk more about your day to day? What does that look like?
Sure. So when I started out, in 2021 at ADP, it was basically like it was a SOC analyst role,
Okay.
but essentially, but we would take investigations kind of all the way to remediation. We didn't have a team that we necessarily escalated to.
Mm-hmm.
So that role was essentially, monitoring a dashboard, looking at incoming alerts from various sources, and then working these things to remediation. CVS, much bigger company, number 4 on the Fortune 500, 300,000 employees, like, huge. So we do have a SOC team that's beneath
Mm-hmm.
us, and they will escalate alerts to us. So as far as the day to day, I'm getting up, monitoring, going through my email, monitoring an escalation dashboard and see if there's anything that team is escalating to us. And then, we have a lot of third parties too that we work with. So if we hear of an incident going on in a third party, we kind of have to get on the phone with their security teams and make sure that that's all being taken care of before we, go back to doing business with them.
Sure. Sure. Makes complete sense.
Mm-hmm.
And can you talk more about your transition as a whole? Like how did you
Mm-hmm.
go from like aquatics assistant to cyber incident response engineer?
Sure. So the way that I went from aquatics assistant, which lifeguard, let's be real,
Hey.
um, is you know, basically once I made that decision that cyber was the way to go,
Mhm.
my first thought was, okay, I have to go get a degree. This is a new field. I should go get a degree in that field if I want to work in it. But
Right.
I actually had some really good, mentors in my life who said, like, you know, make sure before, with college, you don't know if you're getting that return on investment. So they were like, look, talk to a dozen people that are in the field, get on LinkedIn, talk to some people, see what they have to say.
Right.
So I messaged about a dozen people, maybe more, basically giving that whole backstory I just gave to you and what should I do
Hmm.
here. And 100% of them responded with, don't worry about the degree, take a boot camp, take some courses, learn on your own, get a cert, and apply for some jobs. So when all of them unanimously answered that way,
Wow.
that was when I was like, okay, I mean, this is it.
That's,
These are
yeah.
professionals in the field, and this is what they're suggesting that I do. And then it
Hmm.
got into, shopping for boot camps.
Yeah.
So,
That's, yeah. I think, most people think, everyone else has it all figured out, but it's really about, just following those crumbs, taking the next right step, and, and the answer revealed itself. So,
mhm.
So I love that. That's awesome. So is there anything advice wise, what would what kind of advice to those with no prior experience in cybersecurity? What advice would you give them who are doing, wanting to do the same thing, looking to do the same thing?
Yeah. So, I think that the first thing that I think a lot of people that are completely new, they're dealing with the imposter syndrome. They're dealing with the, I was working at my gym, or I was a chef, or, I was,
Nike store. Yeah.
Dustin last week, the gymnastics coach,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
he was in my cohort. And
Oh, yeah.
so the first thing is like, well, I'm not a computer person. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is scary. And
Mm-hmm.
you do have to, you kind of, I guess, have to take our word for it that,
Yeah.
you take the boot camp, and after the boot camp, throughout the boot camp and after the boot camp, you're still going to feel that way. You just kind of
Mm-hmm.
have to trust the process,
Just keep
and
pushing
also,
through. Mm-hmm.
right. And also, once you get to the point where you can, I think Evolve gets you to a great point where then you can study for some of these big certifications. And now you have some education on your resume, you have a certification on your resume.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're at the point where, there's a big gap in cyber workers, and so I think part of the learning curve for a lot of these companies is that they need to start understanding that they need homegrown talent. They need to
Mm-hmm.
have people that they take from the bottom, because there just isn't that talent pool out there. And so if you position yourself to, have that education, have a certification, you have a good attitude. My other advice here is treat the job search like a job. Be
Yeah.
disciplined, be consistent. I didn't get my job through connections.
Mm-hmm.
I just would search the same terms, the same locations every single day. And when the job was
Mm-hmm.
posted, I was right on it.
Mm-hmm.
So treat the job search like a job, be disciplined. You do have to sort of beat an algorithm. You do got to make sure that your
Right.
resume is full of keywords. That's
Keywords.
kind of
Yep.
how
Mm-hmm.
it bubbles to the top.
Mm-hmm.
The other things I have here are communications key. Um, communication is a huge skill here, in this field. Like, you not only do you have to collaborate with a lot of teams, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to write highly technical written reports and documentation and stuff. So if you
Mm-hmm.
can communicate and you have some base level knowledge, it's a huge skill. And
Mm-hmm.
then the final thing here is, keep in mind that the people who are interviewing you, they're shopping for a coworker.
Mm-hmm.
um it's not
Yeah.
it's not just, can this person do the job or how
Right.
efficient this person's going to be. It's like, I got to talk to this guy every day, guy or gal,
Mm-hmm.
every
Right.
day, so I have to interface with this person every day. um you know uh, there's a, whether or not you click on a personal level and you're personable and you have some personality, that is a huge, I've been on interviews for on both teams already to
Mm-hmm.
add people to the team, and that's huge, whether somebody clicks or not.
Right. Connecting with that interviewer for sure.
Hmm.
For sure. I love that. That's honestly great advice.
Hmm.
So next question
Hmm.
is, so what made you ultimately choose Evolve Academy to help, get you, launch that
Hmm.
cybersecurity career?
Yeah. So, you know, COVID hits in March. I probably make this decision to go down this path in April, May.
Okay.
And
Wow.
it was like June-ish where I was doing my own studying every day, and
Mm-hmm.
trying to learn as much as I can about the field, as well as shopping for boot camps. And a lot of them met in person and then went remote for COVID,
Right. Right.
which
Forced. Mm-hmm.
the first thing that came to my mind is like, okay, that's not going to be smooth for a lot of these places.
Right.
Like,
Right.
there's going to be
Just the
technical
reality.
difficulties, there's
Mm-hmm.
going to be issues with like the user interface. So literally my first criteria was, something that's tried and true being remote.
Sure.
Like I want something that is remote, that's been remote, that has a good track record. I want all of the wrinkles ironed out before I
Mm-hmm.
join so that I can focus. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, Evolve had a remote program. They had had
Mm-hmm.
it for a long while before then. And so I was, everyone kind of raved about it. Everyone that I talked to really liked it. Dr. Phi over here was a great, first chat that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was talking about that's at a point where I was still talking about getting the degree, and he didn't like shut me down on that. He was like, "Hey,
Right.
look, these are the facts. Whatever way you go, like I'm sure you'll be all right." So just from a personnel perspective was great. From
Mm-hmm.
as far as on paper, it being remote was great. And that's just ultimately what made me make my decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And that's so true. I do remember that, at the start of COVID, how it was, a lot of schools were forced to go online. And so I ended up having that conversation a lot. Like, we've done this,
Hmm.
for quite a while, and we, have already worked out those kinks. Um, so can you tell us more about, back to, the journey itself,
Hmm.
and what kind of challenges did you face, just during the transition period, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. So, firstly, I was as far as challenges, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was coming into this process already beat down by
Yeah.
trying to find a career, and at that point I already had spreadsheets with, hundreds of applications that I had put out and had already been on interviews and had already lost out. So I
Mm-hmm.
was beaten kind of coming into this process. And so it was really
Mm-hmm.
tough to eventually make that decision to pivot over to something completely new, completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So the first challenge is just mental, is just
Yeah.
just trying to commit to a totally new direction. It was intimidating. um, your pride takes a hit. I went to
Mm-hmm.
school for all this time, I studied for all this time,
Yeah.
put in all this work, and now I'm going in a completely different direction. Did I throw it all away? So first off, it's
Mm-hmm.
mental, right?
Mm-hmm.
The second is actually the material, right? So this is material that's completely new to me. So again, we were in COVID. It was during lockdown. So just like I said, I treated the job hunt like a job. I treated
Mm-hmm.
studying for this like a job. So I set an alarm. I would, wake up at 8. I would work till 4, take a lunch break, like while on unemployment, just learning
Mm-hmm.
cyber stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and, I really, really committed to it. So, um, that's how I approached that challenge of the material being intimidating. Was I just dove into all this material that's online. I mean, that's what's so cool about this field. And I just watched the most recent one with Dustin, and he said the same
Yeah.
thing. Like, if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you can't get to sleep, like, you can make progress on your journey by throwing on
Mm-hmm.
YouTube or getting on any of these resources, these Hack the Box, all this different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's just endless amounts of things for you to dive into.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I remember, Dustin, back to what you said about, the material all being new and it's intimidating. And he had said, did it all make sense? No, but I just kept, studying and kept, putting one foot in front of the other, and it all just kind of falls, it all kind of comes together, and very cool. Thank you for sharing. So let's talk about what your favorite part of working in cybersecurity.
Hmm.
What's your favorite part?
Um, Favorite part. I mean, being an incident response, you're always on your toes. You know what I mean? Like, and that's that's one thing that I definitely want the students to hear is how broad the field is, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
you have people who work 9 to 5. They have, nights and weekends off. They work on these kind of extended projects, whether it's with a certain product or whether they do like advocacy or communications or GRC stuff. But then in a role like mine with incident response, with this job, I'm on call,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
certain
wow.
weeks. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, and obviously there's pros and cons to that, but um, being an incident response, especially at such a big corporation, is you are seeing all of the cutting edge tactics and techniques from threat actors.
Right.
So if I had to describe what my favorite part is, it's probably just having this kind of bird's eye view of the bad guys and kind of what they're up to. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's that's pretty interesting. Getting to see,
Yeah.
what's the new thing they're exploiting, what's the new trends, because
Right.
you're going to see it before it ends up in the news, before your friends know
100%.
about it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's very cool, very, very
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Yeah, you see it before the world knows about it
Hmm.
because, they're essentially, trying to, find new ways, right?
Hmm.
New techniques.
Hmm.
Very cool. And I think this is something, a lot of people are curious about. How does the industry differ based on, what you kind of envisioned early on versus what, is actually reality?
Well, I think part of what contributed to the imposter syndrome and like the fear was I thought everybody in the field's highly technical. They're gonna know way more than me, and they're gonna like dance circles around me because I haven't been
Mm-hmm.
in this field or been a computer guy forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you come in, that's when you realize how much uh, being a good communicator is key. And I attribute a lot of my success to just being a good learner, being a good listener, being a good communicator. Like soft skills are needed in this field. And so okay, if you're not the most technical person, if you're on your way up, you're learning some of these things, but you know what, you have a great bubbly personality and you
Mm-hmm.
communicate really well and you listen really well and you take diligent notes and you can make a great PowerPoint to make your point about something. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like just how I guess what differed from my thought process was I thought everybody was going to be like my man Ramen Deep over here and
Right.
just like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
dicing everybody up and that I would kind of be sitting in the corner like way over my head. And that's not the case. There's a lot there, like I said, you could work in the communications sector where you're putting together like phishing awareness stuff. You're putting
Mm-hmm.
putting together communications for awareness for whatever the upcoming threat is. Maybe you're working on a product team. I don't know. There's a spot for everybody, I think, and that's
Right.
definitely what surprised me. I definitely thought it would be a little more of a silo.
Right. Right. And to your point, I do hear a lot of people say just how competitive they think the industry is, and that they're going to kind of have to step on the person next to them to
Hmm.
to move up, and everybody is everybody just helps each other in the from my perspective, it seems like everybody just is helping lift each other up because everybody knows that they don't know everything. So
Yeah, that's a really good point too.
yeah.
Is a lot of the very technical people who you see and are intimidated of are very often super excited to share that and
Right.
explain it to you and help you. And also, just from a management culture, I think, I come from I worked at the Nike store for like 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
and you're in the sales environment where it's all about sales and it's all about
Mm-hmm.
pushing sales and stuff. And when you move into a security mind, it's much more laid back. And I
Right.
know, no disrespect to salespeople, you need salespeople, you
Right.
need, um,
Mm-hmm.
but it just was such a different vibe for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone is so focused on the mission. Um, when times are slow, especially my management, a lot of them are very into kind of the wellness of us at the analyst level. They're like, hey, it's slow right now, so like, make sure you're taking care of yourself, make sure you're taking time off
Mm-hmm.
and getting sleep and stuff, because
Right.
it's going to hit the fan and we're going to
Right.
need you. You
And
might get
you will
that.
have to grind. Yeah.
Yeah, you might get
Mm-hmm.
that 2 a.m. call or whatever, but during the low times, it's like, okay, we're gonna
Mm-hmm.
take that victory.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Tyler, thank you so much.
No
I
problem.
mean, I loved hearing your story. I'm sure everyone else did too. We're about at time. So I do want to give everyone another chance. If they do have any questions for Tyler, feel free to post them in the Q&A. I'm going to share my screen and just go through a couple last things here. So for those who are also, who are wanting to, 1 second, there we go. So for those of you in the audience who are interested in starting your own cybersecurity journey, you can go to our website, academy.evolvesecurity.com, and get started today. Start with our free cybersecurity course and starting just learning the fundamentals, the foundational knowledge. You can also read more about Evolve Academy's cybersecurity bootcamp. And our next class is going to be starting here May 22nd. And we do also have another one starting in July 24th. And join us next week for our next cybersecurity career webinar. We have Rizzy joining us to talk about how they went from network admin to cybersecurity professional. We'll be posting more about how to register. And thank you. Let me just I know we're about at time here. Oops, stop sharing. It looks like there may have been, we got a couple thank yous. Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Tyler. And let's see. So we did have a question. Are you still good with time, Tyler?
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. So Sandra T wants to know, how did you come up with the money to pay for this course? Did you have to dip into savings or loans?
I dipped into savings, and it was a nice chunk of it.
Yep.
I also had to do a laptop upgrade. I was still
Yeah.
rocking with some really old one that I used for college, and needed to re-up it. So that certainly contributed to the
Mm-hmm.
stress that when you talk about the challenges section.
Mm-hmm.
That's another one. Not only was it like going into it defeated, kind of having the fear of something new.
Right.
It was also it's a financial commitment,
Right.
and
It
so
is.
you know, I would say don't take it lightly. You know what I mean? If you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
spend that money, take it serious. Study hard. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah, absolutely. A couple more questions coming in. We'll answer as many as we can. I know we're
mhm.
we're at time now. So Siraj said, I am in between jobs as well and looking into career in cybersecurity. I do have like 20 years of experience in IT, and currently I'm taking the CompTIA Security Plus training and exam. Any comments?
I think if you have 20 years in IT and you get the Security Plus, you are going to be a juicy commodity for entry level.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Let's see what else. I'm stuck in help desk trying to specialize, and the trick of getting a foot in the door has been difficult.
Yeah, I think help desk is awesome experience for getting into entry level. I definitely would stack that with a cert like Security Plus. And again, same thing as the previous question. I think that if you have help desk experience and you stack a couple certs, I think you're putting yourself in a pretty good position for entry level. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying entry level is easy to get. They're
Right.
not, it's not easy to
Mm-hmm.
get. And no matter what field you're at, there's going to be an unlimited amount of people that are trying to get entry level.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where treating the job search like a job, being disciplined, making sure you're putting out, I tried to put out like 3 to 7 applications a day or something, whatever I could manage.
Mm-hmm.
And making sure you interview well, interview prep.
Right.
You
Mm-hmm.
a good first impression goes a really long way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
So I will, so there's two, I'm going to read these, and I'm going to also provide an answer, and then I would be curious your answer too, and then
Hmm.
we'll wrap up. But
Sure.
someone had asked, have you recovered the spend for this course now? We do track our starting salaries of our graduates, and there is an average of a 25% pay increase of our graduates on average.
Hmm.
And someone else had asked any idea on the entry level salary for beginners. And we also track that as well. And so the average starting salary of our graduates is 74,000, whereas the Bureau of Labor Statistics has an average starting salary in low 90s, actually. So that's kind of the data that we tracked. And then, last question from Sandra is, have you recovered what you had spent for the course? Were you able to put the savings back?
Yes, sure
Good,
have.
good,
It's
good,
been nice.
good, good. That stress is gone. Now,
Hmm.
now you can,
It also
you just,
helps that, no rugrats running around. No,
right.
no, I don't have like, I also don't have huge commitments.
Right,
So,
right.
I'm sure that won't be forever. And I don't think that that's,
Mhm.
everybody's situation, but,
Right.
fortunate for that.
Sure, but it helps in the transition, absolutely.
Hmm.
So, well, that's all we have time for today. I know we went a little over, so thank you everyone for sticking around, and Tyler for sticking around. And again, just thanks for your time.
Hmm.
We know how much like I said, people appreciate these stories because it helps to when you're trying to make your own changes. So.
Yeah,
Um,
no problem. Happy to participate. And, for the rest of the unanswered questions, hit me up on LinkedIn.
yeah.
I'll be happy to answer.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler.
Hmm. No
Thank you,
problem.
everyone. Have a great weekend.
Yep. Have a good one.